guys, I hope you guys are doing good today. Today's video is going to be about my August subscriber of the month. Her name is Sanchia and it is with her little dog called Peppa. I drew them in graphite and carbon. I will quickly show you what materials I used, and then next up is the time-lapse video, and then you can just see how it's done. Okay, to start off with, I always use my Mars Technico pencil for the outlines. This core in here is a 2B core, so the containers look like this. I don't really go much darker than 2B because these actually get really dark, and I use this for the outline as well as for the real detailed bits between the eyes and under the teeth. And yeah, I used it a couple of times just to find out where those smaller details are, and also to use it as a way to make areas a lot darker. Never use a heavy hand if I could give you any advice, because the minute you press too hard with graphite or carbon, it tends to have a shine. Yeah, so I don't know if you can see, I hope not, but if I had to make this turn in an angle, no, hopefully you can't see that, but if I had to make a turn at an angle, or you had to look at it in different angles, you would see that some of the areas are more shiny than other areas, and that's just because some areas that have too much graphite eventually becomes a bit shiny. And you can avoid that if you just make sure you blend very well and that you don't press too hard with the graphite. I think with the eyes I got a bit carried away and I did press a bit too hard with some of the graphite areas, and that's why that shine is mainly there. What I used other than my pencils, and the other pencils I used was the Faber-Castell graphite pencils. This is just the 9000 art set. So that's just your range of pencils from 2H to 8B. I think I only used 2B and 6B and 8B. I like using the real dark soft ones. For all the lighter areas, I like to use my Filbert brushes, which are these soft brushes over here. This is what these ones look like. I just have a whole set of them, and I find that these are the ones I use the most. You can see they still have some carbon fiber on the tips. So what I do is I just take my carbon powder. So I just have a carbon stick and I've just ground it up into fine powder. You can buy the powder in a jar. You don't have to grind it yourself if you don't want to, but if you want to, you can. And then all I do is just press the tips of these brushes gently into the carbon powder, and then any excess I would dab onto a piece of tissue paper, and then I will start building up that value more and more and more. So at least it's not too harsh as soon as you put it down, as long as you don't have too much on the brush, and then you can start building up that value more and more. Another thing that you could use for blending is you can use Tortillions. So you can usually buy them in about a pack. So I just have a bunch of different little sizes of Tortillions, and then you can use the small ones to blend the areas in the eyes or the finer details, or you can use the bigger ones to blend the skin. You will maybe see in the video, if it's not too fast, that I use all of it. I use the brushes, I use the Tortillions, and that's what I use for the skin. The pencils are usually just to do more detailed areas, not so much the entire thing. I prefer to use the brushes. I feel I have more control and it gives it a much smoother outlook. Final to that, the only different thing I use, which is my favorite part of the drawing, is right at the end. I will pick out all the highlighted areas or strands of hair or anything with my Thombo eraser. So it's a nice little, almost a mechanical eraser that has a really small little point, and you can use that to get all the hairs out, which is what I did with Pepper. And you can also use it to get the highlights out of the eyes or on the teeth, or whichever areas need more of the highlights brought out. So you don't have to worry about bringing out those lighter bits until later. With Pepper, you'll see that I filled in all the value first, and only right at the end did I pull out all the highlights of all the white strands of fur. That's a nice thing about using graphite, and because you never use a heavy hand, it's really easy to draw that color out or to draw the highlights out, and you never hurt the tooth of your paper if you do it that way. That's why the soft Filbert brushes really do the trick. And you also want a smooth paper. The paper that I used is this paper, Accademia Fabriano paper, and it's just a 56-pound paper. Whatever that means. I guess it just says how thick or thin it is, I guess. And this is a really nice smooth paper, and it's for graphite or charcoal. Yeah, I don't mind this paper too much. I don't think I've really found a favorite paper yet for graphite, but this paper is not too bad. You don't see too much of the texture coming through on the graphite, so that's really good. And yeah. That is about it. Now, I didn't use any black in this. The really dark areas I find with the eyes, I just used a lot of layering of carbon, and I did use my mechanical pencil a lot to make those areas dark. The darkest pencil that I have is the General's Layout Extra Black. So if you don't want to use black but you want to get really, really dark areas, you can use this, but do not use a heavy hand because it makes it really shiny. So if you press hard with this, you're going to have a shiny area, not a black area. So you need to just gradually build it up until the value is where you're at. If you're not sure about your values, you can get something like this called a value finder. You can make one. I want to make one for myself actually, because these grays are more kind of bluish grays. They're nothing like the tones or the values that I have in my carbon or my graphite. They're complete different colors, but it will still work. It will still give you an idea. I don't know. I'm trying to see, like if you had to look at that area there, probably lighter, maybe. I don't know. The point is that you put the area you're looking for in there to find the value of it. I don't like these colors at all. But once you found your value, I don't know, maybe like between those two. I'm not sure. Maybe even lighter. This is not a very good one. But the idea is that you find the value using your value finder, and then you compare it to your reference to see if it's dark enough or light enough, and if it's not, then you can just adjust it that way. Usually people don't struggle with it being too dark, especially with graphite. Usually it's not dark enough. So have a look at those values. Quite often I find with my graphite drawings or my carbon drawings is that the value isn't dark enough, and some values in a face area, like with this one, what I've noticed is I didn't make the value around the eyes dark enough until later, and then I realized that her face looked completely like a different person. It didn't really look, it looked like her, but it didn't look enough like her, or the way I would have liked it to look. And all I needed to do was just make the value around the eyes so much darker, and it changed the whole face, and it looked more like her. And you take a step back and you're like, what am I doing wrong? I can't see what I'm doing wrong, because it just looks like a different person, but everything else seems like it's the right size, but it still doesn't look right. And that's usually the case, is that your values aren't correct, and it makes it look like a different person, or it makes something just look wrong or different. So that's just something to keep in mind, is to keep an eye on your value, and the more you get your value right, the more your portraits will become realistic, and it would also just add that sense of realism. So yeah, next up is the time-lapse video of this. I hope you guys enjoy. I'm not doing a voiceover on that, I just explained everything now, but if you have any questions, feel free to ask. And I hope you enjoy the video. And thank you Sanchia and Pepper for your subscription and for following my work. And thank you to everybody else that does the same thing. It really means a lot. And I hope to see you in the next video. Bye guys.